end up as either 4th, 5th, or 6th place seeding.
Even though this is the end of the standard season, there's a whole lot of tension here. Every team, both on stream and off, fighting tooth and nail to secure a solid spot in those playoffs, which, as Rebecca said, will be happening next week. And we're hopping straight into the first wave of pick bans, it looks like. TBD knocking out two very powerful mid-range poke mages here, with both Lissandra and Syndra knocked out. A J4 ban as well. And Koyabis kind of doing the same. Lux and Velka. We don't like magic here, is what I'm learning. We don't want to deal with this ranged poke. I, Hi guys, I'm Blast. I'm not Blast. I that's so funny. And there's a Nasus ban, so mages and frontlines knocked out on both sides going into the picks here. Was kind of hoping after you announced the team to be determined, you were gonna say that we didn't have any info on them and they just spawned up here. That'd be funny, but nah. Each of these teams has been fighting hard to make their way here. And now, like Rebecca said, this is a real match to determine who's going to sit pretty and who might not even make it into the playoff season. First pick of the night is Yunara.
Both teams are actually guaranteed to make it at least into the playoffs.
Okay.
As there are 8 slots. However, with that being said, the positions in the leaderboard are not set in stone, so the seeding is not determined just yet. It depends on both this match and, as well, the Hayes and Conduit Co match as well. So it'll be good to keep an eye on both of those, and we'll try to keep you posted in terms of what the status of those games are at the very least. I just received word as well. The 1v1 was for top laners in this match, and it does appear that our to be determined squad, who is JP, ended up just deciding to pick first.
Okay, what does Trek excited to see? I love there's the 1v1 format that Ember uses to decide that is always fun. But what I especially love about it is it instantly spawns like a rivalry in the lane that did it, you know? Like now, even more so than usual, there's going to be some tension topside. Definitely going to be a matchup to look out for. Jin and Ari locked in on Koyabis side. To be determined locking in Xinjiao. Now we're looking
Obviously,
at
these are pretty standard picks that we would normally expect, especially from at least this league. Jinzhao and Ari being some of the most picked champions in general, with the highest present in any of the Ember League at all. So these are not surprises to anybody, except for this Hui. Now, CC has played Hui in the past in mid lane, and it's been very, very strong. In fact, it's actually the piece that allowed them to beat Conduit Demon Time a couple weeks ago, if anybody was watching that match. CC's Hui was the key turning point to that entire series that they had. Pulling out the Hui allowed them to come back from a very large deficit, so we'll be seeing if that ends up being just as positive this game as well.
Can't say I saw that match, but can attest to the strength of a Hui. Just last week we saw a Hui really like not super dominant kill wise early on in bot lane, but managed to just completely hold their own and enable their support to just be a constant presence across the map roaming. So either way, with a lot of mages, they kind of function as flex picks now, especially with how strong bot mages still are. So I really do like the pick. There's a reason that so many mages got banned out immediately into this pick ban. We will see the final pick of Wave 1 with Trundle for Koyabis. Junglers locked in on both sides, and seemingly ADCs and mid laners. That leaves the support and the top lane, the real brawn of a lot of these comps, still up in the air. Bard knocked out and Gnar knocked out. Now for Koi Abyss's final ban of game 1.
I wouldn't be shocked to see something like our staple Cassante or Garen ban here, just
Mm-hmm.
because those champions have been really relevant from JP. But Rumble is a pretty fair ban as well. They ended up playing it as like a support in some of their most recent games, and they've had a very good luck with it.
Rumble is just an incredibly strong. In Ember League especially, found a lot of lane bully top laners have just worked wonders.
The oppression of the top lane allows like in this league allows for people, especially in that role, to really excel, to be beyond their own limitations that we would normally see as a top laner.
Mm-hmm.
Typically top lane you see them as the island, the people who kind of stray away from everything else. But in this Ember League, top lane has been very relevant, regardless of how good or how bad the early game has gone for any of these players.
And I fully believe it. Strong top laner just means some really easy to access constant pressure that allows the rest of the team to really go for a bit more wild plays that they may not otherwise be able to, and allows, importantly, the jungler to give big focus elsewhere.
Yeah, speaking of strong top laners here, we do have an orange selected on the side of Koi. Koi Abyss trying to get this power team going with the big burst of high damage, but the rundown and the lockdown that these characters really are looking for. Stuff like Jin and Trundle, which will of course force something like a Braum in this case to be able to counteract some of that heavy engage that at the very least Ornn and Ari try to offer.
Right. And oh, there's a yeah, that's I'm a sucker for Shen. Very strong into Ornn. Could use that W to deny a lot of the damage that he gets through the brittle autos, and just constant pressure. The like I want to say recent, but it's been over a year now. Top lane change, enabling the stronger teleport, made Shen a lot more flexible at utilizing his mobility. Um, oh, and Anivia, interesting. I think that Anivia support then.
It's
Very
entirely
interesting.
possible that this is a Trundle support as well. I know it's not what
Ooh.
we typically are used to seeing. However, Trundle support is a viable pick. It has been played a lot in professional play. The Aftershock Trundle, or even just the regular standard Lethal Tempo or Conqueror Trundle, is still very powerful with that pillar, enabling
Mm-hmm.
somebody like a Jin, or even in this case, stopping someone like a Xin Zhao or a Shen from being able to engage as heavily as they want. I don't know about specifically for this matchup though, if they'll like to go for it.
I'm really not sure. These two very flexible comps, all about how they're piloted, which is the biggest thing here in Ember League. Because of the rank restrictions, we see a lot more variance in how these teams play. And it's so much fun.
I
Um,
do think the to be determined, at least their positioning here in this coming game is pretty standard. We'll likely see the Shen in top lane with the Xin Zhao jungle, Hui mid with Yunara, ADC, and Braum support.
mhm.
Those are very standard champions that we we're used to seeing. It's typical. It's nothing too fancy, nothing too out of the ordinary. Very easy champions, with the exception of Hui, obviously, who is much more difficult. But the rest of these champions are very straightforward. They're not as easy to make mistakes with. To be determined wants to be able to get this win to be able to empower them to get to higher slots for that leaderboard, as they are currently the lowest ranked out of any.
Well,
However, we will
was
see how this game goes as we take a short 2 or 3 minute break just to be able to get us into the rift and prepare for this coming game.
Just go with the flow. I'm taking it slow, but I just want more. I'm taking it slow. Just go with the flow. I'm taking it slow. My knees on the floor. I'm begging for more. It's you I am.
kind, or it could be seen as a hindrance if it is placed in front of an Ornn who is trying to get a combo off. So it'll be interesting to see just how well that they are able to execute that in their team cooperation.
Absolutely, and immediately, you're right about that. Anivia support. Ooh, getting some good damage, and an invade on to Chris Seraph. You see Ryan to back you up to try and help him out, but forcing out a flash. That's going to be a whole lot of tempo lost. The speed of Lost Times is here, trying to get some damage out onto Lava Lizard. It's a solid trade, but can't do anything to stop Jace on Trundle from just devouring that bot side. It's gonna take a whole lot of effort to get Chris Seraph back in the game here. It's only up to
So
C.
for those of you who kind of missed that because we weren't over by that red side jungle, what ended up happening was Xin Zhao actually started with the Raptors, while Trundle went on to the red buff. So they both ended up getting level 2, and then went ahead and fought each other in that jungle, with both of them to be level 2. So one of them did not have the advantage over the other except for that red buff, which is why Trundle was able to chase out Xin Zhao from the jungle.
Also, Trundle's just scary.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But Xin Zhao is pretty scary himself. Let's give him some credit.
That's true. Ooh, nice block by Ryan. Still dangerous to... It's definitely Brum's, like, game plan, but... Ooh, nice level up. Hold on, this is a nice little bit of momentum. Phenomenal poke by Himli. Really putting the damage on the Waffle. Putting
That
a stop to
electrocute
that.
is so powerful on supports. The little bit of burst just constantly coming out. You're able to proc it so frequently that it's just so much value from such a little rune. Most people
Meanwhile-
don't go it because electrocute is not something that you would typically think a support to bring, though.
Yeah, doesn't scale fantastically either, but hey, sometimes all it takes is that extra pop of like 100 damage to put a stop to what could have been a phenomenal play for TBD's bot side. Meanwhile, in the top lane, we're already seeing why that Shen matchup is so good. Oh my gosh, forget about that. Jace with 2 gauge is currently trying to run down Chris Seraph again. Luckily, TBD will get that bot scuttle. And gold
There's just
is...
so much pressure from the Koi team onto the jungle that Seraph is trying to get through. Cry is one of the stronger players on this TBD roster, so not enabling him to be able to get off everything that at least you're looking for as Xin Zhao, it really does damper the entirety of that momentum. However, with that being said, TBD has gotten both Scuttle Crabs in this matchup, so I think that was pretty worth it.
Oh yeah. For what it... and honestly, for what it's worth, despite all the effort that Koyabis have put into getting their jungler ahead, look at the gold. It's actually ever so slightly in TBD's favor. Ooh, Innisui has that 4th shot, but Waffle getting some great damage out. TBD's bot side finding their footing here. Lost Time's doing a great job keeping Lava Lizard down as well. Despite, yeah, just the great pressure, it really does seem like TBD are playing this very, very well to keep a very slight lead. It's a bit back and forth, but it's even. And off of that play, that's not at all what I expected.
I think it's also really interesting. They're fielding Lava Lizard here instead of Revan. Revan is one of the stronger mid lane players in this entire roster, and Lost Times is definitely going to be able to punish the not as, I don't want to say experience, but it's more like they don't have as much understanding of how Ember kind of flows, simply because they don't have as much playtime in the league. So we'll see if that really does impact negatively or positively. We can already see that there is an 11 CS differential, and there was that little skirmish that we saw with the level 6 on Hui. With that being said, though, it does appear that we might have a little bit of gank here, but I don't think Seraph will take that big of an engage since he's not level 6 yet. Oh, big wall coming out from the Anivia, this big swell, and we won't be able to get just enough damage despite the Deathfire Grasp on that Jhin. Ooh, almost lands a W for that last bit of damage. I don't know if it would have been enough to actually kill, though.
No, but it definitely would have been damage that Wafflers does not want to deal with that current. Great damage on the tower.
Especially when you're trying to just get off. That Deadly Flourish has so much range. That is Jin's W. The ability of poke that you're able to zone off with that ability is so much just from a little bit of poke, that little bit of extra damage, that little root, whatever you need it to be, it has value as long as you land it. Oh, big trade coming out from this top side. It does look like Orin ended up being able to kill the Shen pretty definitively as well. You can see half health still, quite a bit of mana. There was clearly some kind of fight that was going on in that top lane that we unfortunately missed. But there was a canceled back here coming out from the Anivia, trying to stop that level 6 back here that Yunara has. However, Jhin has reached level 6 and will be able to take out Yunara with that curtain call. What a phenomenally timed ultimate from our Jhin here. As
did we lose to the shop screen? Waffle, you see it, you hear it. What happened? Waffle had all the time in the world to move.
It seemed to might have been the reason why. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but we've all lost to the shop screen. However,
it happens. It's just that's tragic.
That was very well played by Anasui, though.
Koi Abyss really starting to put some pressure across the map. We gotta kill bot side, we gotta kill top side. Now, hopefully, we're gonna see those junglers start making an impact places across the field.
We can also see that Infernal Drake was taken by Koi during that whole endeavor. They decided to do it when they were trying to, when Waffles was trying to back and kept getting canceled. Trundle decided to just kind of stroll up to that Infernal Drake and just whack it with a stick. Speaking of whacking things with a stick, though, Trundle does appear to be getting this first grub from a very straggled here, to be determined squad. Wei trying to get a little bit out there, but unfortunately those grubs are going to be able to stop his disengage. With the charm coming through, Trundle getting scarily low here on those raptors, despite having that sustain that Trundle does have. Won't be able to recontest those grubs just in time, and will be able to allow both of the other two, at the very least, to go to the side of to be determined. It seems like those backs are being a reoccurring theme. The canceled backs that the Koya team has been very good to punish. You know, whether it's the Braum in mid lane just now, or the Yunara earlier, it just seems like To Be Determined is trying to take some greedy disengages, trying to get some greedy backs, and they're being heavily punished for it. What do you think could help to prevent this from occurring?
I mean, I feel like we just got to play with our eyes up a bit more. I'm not sure exactly what is causing it, but it almost seems like To Be Determined is playing a little autopilot, which especially this early into a match you cannot be doing. Not to put too much shade on, it happens. You gotta, everybody gets started at different tempos, and some of the best teams I've ever casted for in League just start slow. So maybe that's what's going on. Either or, it is fully still anyone's game. We do see Lava Lizard hanging bot side here. Was spotted by that ward. Floating back down, a minute 30 still left before Dragon's up, but this is a really nice...
Now watch Seraph coming in through here on this bottom bush.
Ooh, wait, we saw the ulti from... No, yeah, you're right. Seraph coming in from the bush. I thought that was Adrenaline with the Stand United. Orion will get burnt down. fighting within that Anivia ult. Lost Times manages to find Jace TP'd bot side. That's 2 members down on Koi Abyss. The gold's still slightly in their favor. Lost Times trying to help with the push. Meanwhile, topside, Adrenaline's getting some good damage in. Even through that solo kill. It was a very important fight for To Be Determined. Really getting their foot in the door a bit.
It's interesting to note this first item purchases here. Ornn has elected to go with a frozen heart, which it's mostly here to counter that Xin Zhao and the Yunara. But against Shen, it's not as strong of an item as you would like, or at least hope, in this first matchup. So it's interesting that he went with that as opposed to more magic damage heavy that he would typically want against your Shen, and even with the Hui Yunara on the enemy team. You know, both are champions that deal a lot of magic damage to begin with. It's not a bad thing to get that early magic resist. However, he obviously has elected to get the mana from Frozen Heart. We'll see a Drake fight possibly occur here, but it doesn't look like To Be Determined wants to take too much of this, as Xin Zhao is going topside to that red Koi Abyss jungle. Ooh, big engage coming out from this Ahri, landing a charm, landing her ultimate, and not able to get just enough burst onto Hui. Spirit Rush was able to connect with 2 of them, but unfortunately there just wasn't enough to be able to get out and be able to deal the damage that Lava Lizard was really looking for.
Yeah, just ever so slightly, just as To Be Determined starts evening it up, Koi Abyss pulling ahead ever so slightly. It's a small gold lead, but it's the kind of thing that makes it easier to get the ball rolling. Nice wall, forcing Orion to leap right in front of Anasui's barrage. Again,
It's
Anasui
just
showed
very... The Anivia pick here is such a strong choice. I think that they did a very good job choosing to pick on this. We'll see if this 4th shot... Oh, it does not, unfortunately, land. However, that being said, Waffles is still sticking around a little bit more than he probably should be doing here. We'll see maybe an ultimate does come through, just to be able to get a little bit more wave clear, it looks like. But they do notice that the Trundle is going into this bot side jungle, or bot side lane. They're trying to get this gank off, but it does appear to be a little late. I don't know what they're really thinking of planning here.
Anivia is such a strong poke hero, or champion, but I really hadn't thought about how good a Jhin Anivia would be. Oh my god, fantastic bait by Anasui, forcing Kristoff to pop the Jhin ult, pop the flash. Adrenaline will stand united down, but yeah, forced to immediately TP back top lane because the fight just ends. 2 big cooldowns.
Not a lot of value you're getting from that stand united, though. Unfortunately, not very Oh, a little bit of a pause there.
It happens.
Have no clue. We have no word on what might be the cause here. However, it does appear that there might have been a little bit of disconnection. You can see here we do have the Anivia back. Possibly because of some kind of disconnect, or maybe it could just be because they just got a nice little assist in bot lane. Though it does appear that we are back here, though. We'll keep you posted if we find out anything that might have been the reason behind that pause. I was just kind of speculating, trying to get something out there, but I have no idea. I do want to note here that Lava Lizard is a little behind in gold, and is currently the only member on... I guess not the only member. Orion is also not a full item in either. But what we're seeing a lot of this time, Orion is just kind of getting stuck out in front of this Anivia wall, just preventing him from being able to back off into his teammates. He doesn't have that ability to... Or they're purposely waiting until after he jumps to be able to wall him off, so he doesn't have that escape mechanism that he's usually got. So we see him constantly having to flash to be able to get out, trying to find these opportunities to at least survive. It does look like we're getting a little bit of a skirmish here. Trundle is showing up in this top lane. Call of the Forge God does miss here with a flash coming out from Adrenaline. Very nicely done. Unfortunately, it does not look like it's going to be enough, but it does kill the Ornn. The Ignite that went off from Adrenaline is just enough. We'll see Lost Times coming in here, trying to get Jace here just after that little skirmish that they had, but I don't know what he's kind of planning here. It does appear there's a lot of, lots of bursts coming through onto that Trundle. Just barely not able to get the kill on him before he falls himself. However, the Trundle did fall to the turret there, so I mean, personally, I think that's a worthwhile trade. You're now another kill up on this Ahri. Sure, she's gotten quite a bit of turret plating, but your Braum is right there to be able to defend from this turret, and your turret isn't going to be lost as a result. So there's a lot of value that is going to this trade that is more than just, your mid laner getting killed or your mid laner getting a kill and your top laner.
Oh yeah. You're denying that gold, trying to step up here, hoping to enable a gank. Oh my god, with the late gank by Himli. Lava Lizard turns around, popping the Soul Rush. Burning down Lost Times. That Ignite final tick will find him. Charm caught onto Kristoff right as Jace turns the corner. The stun is up. He's barely hanging on. Even through the Anivia ult, Kristoff will barely survive.
This Anivia is getting so much value here. The zoning potential that is being enabled is just incredible. The way that they're positioning, the way that they're timing these walls, these stuns, even the gank into mid lane with the, I believe it's Flash Frost that ended up coming through the stun from Anivia, that Q, ended up landing with such long range onto Hui that there was just nothing that they could do about it. There was no vision over there on the side of To Be Determined, and Hui is able to lock down yet another Drake as a result. There's just no vision that this To Be Determined has.
No, they've just kind of got to deal with it. Yeah, that Anivia is such a mean counter pick for the Braum. It's so effective. Oh, nice knock up into the Call of the Forge God. Another brittle proc, but both of them denied by the Shen W. Not going to be enough. Dark Carnage will burn Adrenaline down. Securing a cross the map lead for Koi Abyss. The only member of TBD who currently is ahead of their laner is Wafflers. And they bailed on bot lane, and now Lost Time's looking at a really rough spot. Gonna try and make something happen with that Hui ulti. The heal will actually save Jace, get him out of tower just in time. Oh
there
man,
was just barely a little bit of benefit that came out from the Trundle Frozen Domain. Remember, that does increase healing, so the extra little bit of healing that he got from that allowed him to be able to live, as well as the kill on Lost Times, which allows his passive to be able to get that extra healing. Oh, Xin Zhao is taking quite a bit of damage here. It doesn't appear that it'll fall just yet, as Ahri doesn't have enough burn or any burn other than her ult, Malignance. There is no Deathfare Torch, there is no Leandre's, there's no
and
definitive burn.
Popping the Xin Zhao ult to deny any damage outside of that radius definitely helps.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, the burn still goes through, but only, obviously, if the ability has landed beforehand. Lost Times appearing to get caught out yet again here, does get a very nice sphere from Torment, Despair landing onto the Anivia. We'll get the Stand United comes out onto Lost Times to be able to chase down Lava Lizard here, and I don't think they actually have enough movement speed, but Hui does land a very nice disaster to be able to zone off Ahri from full disengage, so she does end up falling. Going up to this top side though, Xin Zhao does not appear to be trying to take this fight with Ornn. Not a fight that is ideal to begin with, but the Frozen Heart on top of that from the Ornn does not help at all. We will see Lost Times shows up with this ultimate yet again onto Dark Carnage, and it might just be enough damage to be able to actually finish him off. But the turnaround does come through, and Ornn is able to actually take out Seraph just barely with that brittle proc that we saw before. So these are fights that, they should be going, theoretically, all in the favor of to be determined, but they're going slightly, they're losing slightly too much out of these potentially dangerous situations. And these are not fights that you should be losing. Like, Shen right now is currently out of position, too far forward, and has to be forced to flash in order to be able to escape this Trundle's ultimate. I feel like to be determined is just going too far into these plays, is committing too much, and ends up kind of falling short on a lot of these situations as a result. What do you think?
Really just barely not been working out. It feels like they've been stumbling right at the final hurdle every time.
Oh.
And oh my god. Lava Lizard putting up even more on the board, getting that solo kill against Lost Times. And that gap ever so slightly is continuing to widen. Soul point for Koi Abyss in a minute. And I really don't know. To be determined, it's gonna need to be a 5v5. They're gonna need to play it perfectly. But they need to start posturing for it now.
The waiting of the abilities from Koi Abyss, once they're down their main cooldowns, they don't really have much to go on. Ahri, Trundle, Ornn, even Anivia are all champions that have fairly decently long cooldowns. So when you wait out enough of them, there might be an opening that appears, that shows itself, that the to be determined squad might be able to act on. However, in order for that to happen, they're going to need all 5 members of their team, and right now they're just caught out by Anivia stun and wall, stopping this fight from even being close to 5v5, as it's only a 5v4. Huge ultimates coming through. Call the Forge just land on 4 different separate people, and Xin Zhao does not be able to get out of range to be able to allow his ultimate to get through. We will see the root come out onto Adrenaline, but is it enough to actually get him out? Orion, big shield coming through, but does end up stopping the stun from landing on from the Anivia. And Orion ends up falling as well because of it, trying to get that the Shen out there at the very end of that fight. So it's a very scrappy fight that we just kind of saw. The Anivia had a very good engage, and it enabled for this Koi squad to go in early and prevent the entire to be determined squad from being ready to fight at all. So it put them in this position where they had to fight. They had no choice. Anivia prevents that entire group up opportunity right before a fight if she lands a nice stun like she did. And this Anivia is really showing just how much power she has as a champion. Despite being down so much in gold, is still doing so much value for this Koi squad.
Absolutely. Sadly, I do have to dip, but Becca's got us set for a very, very strong game here. Definitely be tuned in. Koi up against to be determined. Koi really maintained this lead and really refusing to let up. The only question is if to be determined can find an opening through.
Now, don't worry a little bit too much. I will be staying around. We'll be continuing on with this game. However, it will just be me, so forgive me if I'm a little slow on some of these upkeeps. However, we will be continuing and going very strong with this next team fight that is quite inevitable. However, it does look like a 4v3 in this situation, and to be determined's not looking too hot overall in this game, down 2.5k gold. They really don't want to take these early fights, the ones especially that Shen isn't going to be able to engage on, especially because he is currently in the middle of a skirmish against this Ornn. Such an easy champion to be able to prevent a Shen ultimate from incoming allows for those fights to really take course in at least trying to get that Baron. But it does look like we are not going to be seeing a Baron just yet, as both teams do appear to back off, take their time, reset, allow themselves to get a nice handle on the situation, and just relax for a moment, as waves are currently crashing into the to be determined side very heavily. So, not really much that this Koi team would actually be able to do, but there does look like there appears to be some kind of skirmish trying to get through. This Ari and Anivia are very pushed forward when there is no team behind them. However, the missed abilities from Braum and Tway allow them to be able to get out very safely. Orion looking for something, but is out of position yet again. Gets walled off, but has that jump that the Anivia did not wait for here, allowing Orion to get out fairly safely without too much being lost on that side of to be determined. Anivia getting lower though, gets a nice stun off again on this Orion. Hwei ult does come through onto Jace, not able to get too much out of it, just trying to prevent Jace from being able to engage on this to be determined squad, as they were caught out fairly large from just Rom going too far in again and again. We can see in this bot lane that there is so much sustain that this Ornn has at this point in the game that Shen just cannot compete with it. Now that there's 4 people on this top side, they're waiting for this Shen to be able to help out in this fight. But it doesn't really make too much of a difference if you're caught out like this when there's 2 people behind the wall. You have to force the Jinja ult to go through, as well as Yunara. Yunara had to actually ult to be able to jump over that Anivia wall, and Jinzhao is going to get caught out as a result. There's just too much CC that this Koi squad has. However, with that being said, Shen ended up getting a back off and is going to be able to kill this Ornn in a very good Ignite play from Shen. Now, that being said, all of that occurring has allowed Koi to be able to take this Baron by themselves. This is not going to be very contested, if it's contested at all. There's no way for them to steal or to even contest it, really, seeing as there is a Jhin on the Koi side, as well as a jungler who is alive. So they don't have that smite to be able to even show face before that Baron does fall. Big shoves coming out from this to be determined squad, doing a very nice job of stopping the Baron from being able to be pushed before it even occurs. However, that does look like there was a little bit of overextending. Treadwell does come through, is able to stop Yunara forcing her flash, but there is another ultimate coming through from this way. Able to pick off the Trundle just barely in time with the Shen ult coming through, able to taunt him out. Not able to get too much more than that. However, that's a lot of value being able to put onto the Trundle, because that is a jungler who is down for the next 40 seconds. However, there is still a fight that does appear to be going through here. We are down 2 ultimates from Ari and Jhin on the red side, and Hwei and Shen are both down their ultimates on blue. Orion is going to be coming up on his Flash Villager here in a moment, getting a lot of value out of that Hextech Drake. There's not too much that's able to be done against it. The slows coming through onto Xinjiao, preventing him from being able to get too far into this fight before it comes through. Forge the guy, Call the Forge guy does come through, lands on Adrenaline, Lost Times, and Waffles. Lost Times does fall as a result with that burst coming through from that Anivia to be able to finish him off. Shen, charmed, able to be knocked down as Wei falls. Braum falls. And Waffles is caught on the run here, trying to just find some kind of escape out of this fight, some way of leaving, and it does not look like it's going to come through, as Yunara falls quite staggered after that fight. There was a lot going on in that fight. There was a lot of different skirmishes that were kind of taking place, each team looking for an opportunity, an opening of some kind to be able to act on, to be able to go in on. And unfortunately, this is going to enable Jace to be able to take out Elder Dragon, giving Koi over almost 7,000 gold lead here as a result. Quite a harsh little reality check for to be determined here. They are, going up against this squad a little seemingly unprepared. Just the sheer amount of work that's actually going through here. The steal does not come through in time. It's just barely mistimed. We saw the smite actually come through just a little bit too early and almost is able to save that little sliver of hope that To Be Determined squad has. Now they're stuck against with their backs against the wall. Inhibitor in mid is down. Baron just running out now, but Elder Drake is still running strong. 2 minutes left on that fight, on that to be able to fight such a strong fight with 4 Drakes plus that Elder going forward onto this to be determined squad. We'll see just how much work that is actually able to do. That Hex Tech Soul bouncing from minion to minion with that true damage from that Elder Drake incoming here. Jin just able to get so much movement speed off of every single one of his crits on top of that Hextech Soul because of that movement speed that he has from attack speed with every crit. Doesn't appear to be too much actually happening here though. To Be Determined is looking for some kind of opening, some mistake that this Koi team is going to have. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're actually making any. They're pushing in so hard on specifically plays. Flash comes through on lost times, forced out by the RA engage. Gordon does appear to be caught out a little bit here. We'll see if the ultimate is able to do too much. Ultimate from Xinjiao ends up being forced out as the charm lands onto him. We'll see not too much able to be popped off just after that, as there is 30 seconds left on this Elder Drake. They're trying to wait it out. They're trying to prevent those kills from coming through with those executes. However, they're waiting too long. If they want to be able to fight this and be able to hold their Nexus, they need to engage soon and fast, as all 3 inhibitors have fallen. Forge Guide comes through, Curtain Call comes through, as Hui falls, Braum falls, and there is no stopping this squad. We will see Ari getting a little bit too far ahead and dives to turret, but unfortunately, not much you can do to actually prevent that Nexus from falling to a very strong Koi Abyss squad coming out of this fight and this game feeling very confident on their chances of ending in 4th place in Ember Scorch League's main season. Now, this game ended up being an 11k gold differential at the very end. We saw a lot happening at the very beginning of this match. Back and forths. A lot of the Koi roster was getting ahead, slowly but surely, in the early game because of that Anivia, because of the Jin, because the Ornn. All of that was so prevalent throughout this entire game, and the value that they got off of these champions is present consistently. There was not a single moment where these people were not present in every single one of their skirmishes. Anivia getting those stuns over and over again, the value coming through again and again and again. Himli truly showing why this team deserves to be in that 4th spot for seeding in this coming playoffs. Now, what is going to happen in this coming game? Are we going to see another definitive victory from Koi Abyss? Or is To Be Determined going to show just how much power they have had in the past for turning things around at a moment's notice? You'll find out when we come back.
doesn't mean to be happy, 'cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we beg to know. Like, what did this all mean? There's no tomorrow. Oh, you know, I try to find a purpose in my life to drive me, to guide me. Oh, doctor, I feel dead inside.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Koi Abyss versus To Be Determined Ember Scorch League final match of the regular season. And we are going into another great match, most likely coming forward here. Koi Abyss did take our first game here. Strong, big opening with the Anivia pick enabling so many strong team plays throughout the entirety of that first match. But there's only so much one specific hero can actually do, especially when you have it against champions that are so strong, or it's so strong against, I should say. Coming forward here, we will be seeing very similar bans than what we saw last match. We're still seeing this Nasus and Lux ban. We also saw Vel'Koz last game, the ban on Koi Abyss side. We'll see if it comes through yet again. But Lissandra and Caitlyn is actually banned this time. We're likely going to be looking forward to some kind of hyper carry. Waffles is known for playing those strong, big play champions that we're used to seeing from very drawn out games. Stuff like Jinx, Twitch, the Unara from last game. These are champions that we're all looking to see scale. And it takes them quite a bit. The Vel'Koz ban being hovered here, it's exactly what we saw last game. It's what we expected coming through. Though the Sejuani ban, not something that we showed any sign of in that previous match. They might be looking at some kind of heavy engage on this to be determined squad to be able to prevent that counter engage that Lissandra, Caitlyn, and Sejuani all offer, as they do have quite hard CC potential for hard engaged champions. Poppy, a first pick here, very strong, flexible pick, able to go in arguably every single role with maybe the exception of mid lane, but an ADC obviously, but it's not something that we've seen as much this season, the Poppy support, especially recently, but it's still something that is this to be determined squad, they're able to execute it. It's not something that's too out there. Orion has demonstrated the ability to play it in the past, and especially after seeing the performance that the Anivia brought in that last match, not something that they'll want to be too keen on walking into again. Pop being very strong champion to counter engage as opposed to necessarily hard engage onto this whatever kind of squad that they're going to have to deal with in this coming match. Maokai, Syndra, very hard lockdown champions, very counter heavy champions. They're trying to get some kind of engage. The question is, which team is going to be the one to try to engage onto these fights? Maokai and Syndra both have very large engage potentials, with an ultimate from Maokai and Syndra being able to get a lot of that burst damage out and forcing enemies to back off completely. With that being said, as I was just saying, those early potentially teamfight stopping plays that Syndra offers is exactly what Ziggs excels at. Ziggs, a champion capable of destroying turret after turret, the fast gameplay that Ziggs is looking for time after time, the CC potential that this champion offers. The question is it in mid lane with lost times? Or are we going to see Wafflers playing this Ziggs and, as I expected, we're not going to be seeing it in the traditional bot lane that we're used to seeing Ziggs being played in. It will be played by Lost Times here, with Waffler's signature Xayah coming through yet again to be played here in this match that means so much. Picking that strong champion is so important when you're in a situation like this. Picking something that needs to be consistent, needs to be definite, needs to be something you are so confident with as an individual player that you are able to excel time and time again with. Xayah is that champion for Wafflers. It is the go-to character for Wafflers in any situation. We'll see it against an Ashe here. So most likely we'll see Maokai and Ashe in that bot lane. However, not too sure just yet. We can't get ahead of ourselves too much, as this is still going to be a very strong drafting phase. There still is a missing piece to both rosters here. Koi is missing some kind of team fight brawler champion. Maokai is very strong at being in those fights and sustaining in those fights, but they need something to keep pressure off of them so they aren't completely focused down by someone like a Xayah or a Ziggs. Two champions that have very high burst potential on one champion could be very detrimental to the team. So they're going to need some kind of bruiser or brawler to be able to compensate for this Maokai, which is why most likely we will be seeing Maokai in support, since that will allow for top lane to be that role that we are looking normally for when it comes to those team fight heavy champions. Clearly, I am not the only person who believes this, as To Be Determined has proceeded to ban Mordekaiser. They're foreseeing that this champion is definitely not going to be in this top lane, as Mordekaiser being that exact team fight heavy brawler that they are looking for is being denied here yet again, as a strong pick that Dark Carnage does have up their sleeve. Instead, opting to go for the Gnar as a counter engage that isn't necessarily going to be always the best champion against a Poppy. J4 elected to go here for this jungle pick, seeing this Poppy opportunity possibly for that top lane because Gnar was selected as a champion for this top lane matchup. Gnar is very clearly going to be in top lane. So To Be Determined is using this opportunity to be able to select something that is going to be strong against it, since Poppy is open for any lane that they really want her to be playing in. They want to utilize that fully to their advantage. As Milio is selected here, making it very clear that Poppy is going to be our top laner for this coming match. As not really any other champion besides maybe J4 could even be considered to be played top lane, especially against Gnar. We've seen some pretty crazy things in top lane in the past, whether it be Syndra or even Vhagar played in this top lane. But as I say this, Maokai does appear to be playing in support, in jungle here with the Blitzcrank as our support lineup. So this matchup is going to be very heavily in the engage or anti-engage that we are really looking for from both squads. The Poppy with the Maokai. That matchup being very strongly in favor of that Maokai engage purely because he doesn't actually become targetable until after his dash is actually over. So the ground will not stop Maokai from going through. Blitzcrank enabling that disengage from the Jarvan, or preventing that disengage from the Jarvan, as the hook will bring him back to reality and the fight that he's trying to escape from. We'll see just how much engaged Jarvan is able to get off, as well as the amount of value you're able to get from J4 when the champions that are selected against it are Gnar and Maokai, two champions that are very easily able to get out of a situation like a Jarvan ultimate. Is the burst potential from Ziggs and Zaya going to be enough to be able to enable this J4 to really shine? Or is J4 going to be picked off early in this matchup like we saw in the last game when jungle was heavily pressured by Koi? We will just have to see when the time comes up after this short break. Welcome back, everyone, to the Ember Scorch League final match of the regular season, to be determined against Koi Abyss. Following that very strong first performance in that game that we just saw, Koi Abyss was able to find time after time just how much value they could find with this Anivia choice. And yet again, they have chosen to pick another champion that is very strong at punishing those out of position plays that we've seen time after time. So, is this the value that they're looking for? Well, I don't know. We'll have to find out. We'll see a lot of poke in this mid lane matchup, with Syndra versus Ziggs very strong in late game champions. But champions that take a little bit of time to scale up, especially when you have to go Arcane Comet on both ends. Again, very strong poke lanes in every single matchup, with the exception of this Poppy and Gnar match that we will have to keep an eye on throughout the game. Poppy versus Gnar is a matchup that's very tough for this Poppy, as Gnar is a ranged champion. There's a lot of outplay potential that Poppy offers, however, with the ability to simply negate a lot of the Mega Gnar potential that is there. Mistook from Himli, a little short on waffles. However, there's still a lot of extra zoning potential that this team is providing, as we see the waves shoving up against that blue side turret. Not so much in the jungle, just as of yet. Unlike that last game. Big hook coming through onto Orion, caught out again. Big burst coming through as Asui is able to capitalize on that hook potential so great because of that Ashe slow, just preventing Milio from being able to disengage too far that fast. You know, this is not a champion that is able to get out as quickly as he gets in, because he's not going in or out. It's a champion that's much longer range and should be biding its time farther back, but Blitzcrank is very good at preventing that from happening. We'll see possibly an engage here from this Poppy. Big burst onto Gnar, preventing that jump from occurring. The ground comes through, but doesn't actually elect to jump, forcing Gnar to just back off a little bit. We might see just how much punish this potential this Poppy could bring, as Gnar did elect to go with a Doran's Blade start, as well as Fleet Footwork over something like Conqueror. Big hook coming through onto Orion again. Not their day, it does appear. Orion might be looking at Artemis for a little bit of extra aim potential on some of these abilities, as they've been a little short as well. You see, Maokai is coming in for this gank, trying to get through on this alcove. Does look like it's being shoved a little too much, although he wasn't caught. It might not be able to get the potential that he's looking for. Does get into that last bush, but might not have the opening. Does appear to have a flash opening onto Orion. Orion gets the knockback and is able to prevent just enough. Big root coming through from Wafflers, able to get all three of those champions in the bot lane and prevent them from being able to cut out Orion from his final escape. Very good execution and prevent the ability to prevent could be disaster. Waffler is able to show just how much power that they actually have on this Saya, as it is, again, one of their most confident champions that they play. As I say, Orion misses. Orion has proceeded to land every single ball ever since. So, I take back what I had said. I apologize. There is a lot of power that comes from a champion like Milio, but unfortunately it's only as strong as the ADC that it's paired with. Milio's passive allows an additional burn damage to be applied to anybody who was affected by, or for anybody who was affected by one of Milio's abilities. But it's all based on the AD of that champion. Nara doesn't appear to be getting Mega just yet, but is pushing on that with that Sheen. We'll see Tear only being the item along with Boots purchased by Poppy, but Boots are not going to be enough to get out of this big engaged. Flash comes through, but not able to push far enough into that turret that they were hoping for, and Adrenaline does fall as Mega Nara clobbers yet another champion in this league. We'll see a TP coming through here from Poppy, just trying to get back. It does look like Mega Nara is overstaying just a touch. Poppy might be able to just get a little bit too much out of this as value. Ooh, but the hop does come through and is able to get the double jump out. Seraph does appear to be a little caught out here. Not the kind of position you're looking for, especially when you're only level 5 and the people that are with you are also only level 5. Lost time does get low as he's not able to continue to fight this Syndra pushing down to this bot lane. To be determined just doesn't have the opening and the prio that they're looking for to be able to pressure this Drake that they want to. And we're opening into another situation just like the last game where the Drakes were very one-sided as To Be Determined didn't contest a single one. And from Drake we see falling from arrow to arrow of that Ashe. Still level 5 here. It does appear that the side of Koi will be a little farther ahead in XP, so we'll see Ashe get that level 6 first, as those levels do tick down to get them that advantage in the bot lane. We'll see if Enchanted Crystal Arrow is able to come through. Maokai does come through with his ultimate, able to be cleansed, so the Blitzcrank does miss Hook. However, that does prevent Maokai from actually having an escape, and he is going to get caught out here. A little extra engage from that Xayah. Not exactly necessary. The flash was a little overkill. Not too important. Hook missed again from Himli. Not able to get the potentially powerful countermeasure to this Milio, and they're able to get away with a free kill on that Maokai, who was just out of position enough to make a difference. We saw last game that there was a lot of oppressive poke from Himli on both of these bot lane champion players. Oh, big engage coming through onto J4. Cataclysm will come out to be able to prevent Syndra from escaping. There was a little ultimate from Syndra there onto Ziggs, but it wasn't enough to prevent Ziggs from living any longer. And Syndra did fall afterwards. Just a little extra, trying to get something, some kind of value out of that full engage. Maokai does appear to be taking a little bit of a fight with J4 here. Doesn't have too much in the way of damage on from either one of them. However, Maokai does have that damage over time that is able to be utilized and prevent too much of a fight from the side of To Be Determined. So we'll see 2 grubs go on the side of Koi, while To Be Determined did actually get 1 before they had to back up. Keep in mind, folks, that the Syndra stat counter does appear directly above the level counter on the bottom of your screen. We can see right now she is already at 47 stacks, 9 minutes into the game, and is already looking at an engage here onto this bot lane. Stun comes through onto Orion, able to get the pick on him. Wafflers tries to ult to be able to get out, but is not going to be able to get too much value out of that Featherstorm, as she does fall to this Syndra roam. Too much value comes out from this Syndra going into bot lane, cutting off the escape that Orion and Waffles were trying to be able to look for, and they had no vision to be able to see it coming at all. There was a little bit, but there just wasn't enough to be able to prevent it from occurring before it actually happened. As we see, level 9 comes out from Syndra, Hex Optics is purchased from Ashe, and we are on our way to a very strong game. A little bit of a skirmish they're looking for this Ziggs here. It does look. Maokai might be wrapping around, but with Xayah and Milio so far pushed forward. Meanwhile, in top lane, this fight does appear to be very strong for this Gnar after utilizing that ultimate to be able to get out. Like I said before, though, this Xayah and Milio are very far pushed up, and they are going to be punished for it as Maokai and Blitzcrank come through with ultimate after ultimate to be able to prevent the escape that Xayah and Milio are looking for as they fall to both of those champions. Gold is now even on both sides. However, Gnar does have that advantage because of those picks that they have gotten onto Poppy. Poppy being a melee champion versus Gnar's range. Poppy is not 100% melee. Does have that extra auto that's ranged every couple seconds, depending on when she picks up the buckler. But it's still not going to be enough value to be able to farm with that Gnar is going to be able to utilize with that full range advantage that he's got. You can just see Gnar is just able to run people down with that hyper ability that he has, those little circles around enemy champions, able to dish out quite a bit of burst of magic damage of all things onto the enemy champion, dealing a percentage of their health and granting Gnar movement speed and a percentage of his Mega Gnar form. And Enchanted Crusader does miss here. We will see J4 does engage, looking for that Cataclysm onto possibly Syndra, maybe Blitzcrank. Maokai does appear to be getting quite a bit of zoning off. J4 too far in is going to get stunned by Syndra, and there won't be too much that they're able to do about this situation. There's just too much that happened too quickly before too many of the to be determined side of this fight was actually able to get there. So Seraph did look like they engaged a little too fast for this to be determined squad to actually be able to come back and support them in their endeavor. This game is still anybody's, though. As we can see, the Gnar is really the only person who's substantially farther ahead of their lane opponent. Poppy definitely seeing that disadvantage that she's been at. Not typically the fight that you want to see from your top laner. Not the easiest one to be seen. J4 trying to get this Blitzcrank here. A little bit of opening. There's no vision on them, though, and he's going to be hooked back into this Blitzcrank Ashe combo. Ashe is just going to be able to zone off anybody who wants to come close. And he's going to be able to take out the J4 as well, just because of that burst potential from this duo that we have. Syndra's still there looking for some kind of follow-up onto this duo in bot lane. She's spending a lot of time in this bot lane so that Maokai is able to hold onto that mid turret. Ziggs, being a tower destructor, is not getting all the value that he's looking for, and Poppy is still taking way too much poke from this Gnar. Even with that extra ninja tabbies, she's not able to prevent enough damage that makes it so that it's worth it to stay in lane time and time again, taking those trades that are just too heavily favored on the side of that Gnar. The only thing that she has to prevent Gnar from doing his full burst is that steadfast presence, the ability that prevents any champion from using a movement ability on Poppy in her range. We'll see Mega Gnar tick down here, just not enough time to be able to use that ultimate, but is able to still run down quite a bit. There's still a lot of power that comes from that mini Gnar form, the range advantage that is granted just from that little engaged. Seraph does look for an opportunity here, some kind of cataclysm, but doesn't have it up, so he's not going to be able to get too much anyways. There does appear to be Blitzcrank Maokai in that top side looking for some kind of look pick The hook does come through onto Sarah. Flash comes through from Maokai to stop him from actually going under the turret. Blesscom was hit by Hemley there, so there was a little bit of a team kerfuffle there, as that's not the kind of thing you're really looking for to force your jungler to flash. But regardless, they did get the value that they wanted out of it, and they're able to get this Rift Herald as a result, getting another jungle objective to the side of Koi Abyss. If they want to be able to win this game, To Be Determined is going to need to prevent these jungle objectives time and time again. But Adrenaline is really showing their not as experienced time in this season, as they are trying to fill for JP DeBoss, who is currently actually on vacation. Or at least, as I've been told, their computer is. Very big shoes to fill. And yet, Adrenaline is still managing to be able to keep up with this dark carnage that Koi Abyss is able to field. Now watch the Phantom Dancer that this Ashe currently has. She's able to be 2 full items in already this early in the game. We're only 16 minutes in, which means 1 item every 8 minutes, which is absurd for anybody, let alone in ADC. However, that's exactly who you want your goal to be on. And we'll see that 7.1 total goal making a very big impact onto this game. Waffler's trying to keep up with that CS just barely, so that they can be able to contest the amount of gold that Anasui is able to obtain. Engage we'll see coming out from J4, however, Syndra does get the evolve onto her E during that little kerfuffle, and we'll see the power of that stun prevents it from being able to engage fully onto Syndra. Not exactly the opportunity you were looking for as J4 anyways. Syndra not the champion you want to be jumping on, especially when she's got that Seeker's Arm Guard, able to Zhonya's whenever she needs to after being jumped. But definitely not what you're looking for when she backs off and is able to get a full turret for you having to back and not be able to even contest this incoming dragon that holds so much power for your entire team. The healing and shielding potential that could be given to Milio, J4, and Poppy all together. Ooh, big enhanced arrow coming out onto Xayah, forced out Featherstorm as well as that Breath of Life. Big engage comes through from Ashe, getting off the kill onto J4 as Cataclysm does not land in time to be able to count. Gnar in top lane, able to get time and time again that poke off onto Adrenaline. Not going to be able to get the full benefit of that. Waffles forced to flush out, does still fall to this team against his turret. And we'll see just so much value coming out from this Rift Herald as well, on top of that fight that just came through. There's still nothing that this To Be Determined squad can actually do against Koi. As we saw in that last little bit, the damage difference in that team fight was over 3,000, as To Be Determined was not able to get any kind of fight out of that entire situation. Gnar taking out turret after turret as we watch Maokai and Syndra in their big engage potentials fighting To Be Determined over and over again and coming out on top. It just makes you wonder how much this team wants to fight, and why does To Be Determined want to take so many fights when they need to just bide their time and really wait, try to lessen the impact of this 8k gold deficit that they are currently in against Koi Abyss. Seraph not looking for the best situation here as he loses all of his red side jungle and nothing that there could be done about it. The amount of vision, the amount of zoning that Maokai and Blitzcrank offer, you can't step into these two champions. There's just too much counter that is there. The Maokai is able to lock you down, followed by the Blitzcrank hook that is guaranteed to land immediately afterwards. So there's no actual counterplay to this combo. Such a good combo that they have. Ash Arrow does miss under Lost Times, but Lost Times is still going to be looking at a lot of pokes from that Mega Gnar boulder that was just tossed. Maokai ult does come through, root landed, and Ziggs. There goes the hook from Blitzcrank. We'll see Maokai just barely falls because he took a little bit too much damage from that Ziggs Mega Bomb. However, back in top lane, we do have a little bit of a fight coming out on the Syndra. However, Syndra does have a lot of gold and a lot of items that are able to prevent Poppy from doing just enough damage yet, as Syndra levels up that are execute and available to be able to stop this Poppy's disengage at the very least, or at the most, prevent her from dying. Gnar getting jumped on here does end up gnarring a little bit too heavily on this J4, barely lives just on a sliver of health, and meanwhile, the value that they get out of it is an entire mid lane turret. We'll see them go into the inner turrets here as they back once more to buy a full Zhonya's on Syndra and an item and a half from Ashe. Keep an eye on these gold differentials here, folks. This is a 9.3k gold difference just over 22 minutes into this game. 3 Drakes up, Koi Abyss has shown time and time again the sheer amount of power that they have available to them just from the CC combo of Maokai with Blitzcrank and Syndra all on top with the Ashe to boot. We will see just how much value this combo can get in just a moment as this engage comes through. Poppy looking for some kind of stun, some kind of CC. Maokai ult does come through, lands on Poppy and Waffles. It's just not going to be able to get enough out of it. Seraph is caught out after flashing over the wall, able to pick it off by the Syndra. And that's the execute Syndra ultimate that we were looking for. You can just see the sheer difference in damage amounts that is being covered by both teams. Twice as much damage is being fired off by a Koi Abyss, and they don't even have Gnar in this fight. So just imagine the amount of capability they could have if they were fully 5v5. That entire skirmish took place as a 4v5. And to be determined still barely got out with all of their lives except for J4. Soul does go to the side of Koi Abyss, and we will see just the value that Chemtech Drake can truly have on a Maokai, a Blitzcrank, and a Gnar. The healing potential that is offered, able to circumvent a lot of that damage that there's currently no preventing on the side of To Be Determined. Poppy still only 1 item deep, as J4 is almost at that Black Cleaver, but still not yet there. Looking for this Baron opportunity, this Koi Abyss squad is slowly pushing out every single one of these lanes to be able to get the most value that they possibly can from this Baron. Shoving mid lane is Ashe right now, as Syndra shoves bot and backs to be able to enable the strongest potential for this Baron. Syndra, however, jumped by the Ziggs Mega Bomb, and J4 cataclysming Syndra, barely not able to die, as Syndra is eventually picked off after Zhonya's is popped. A lot of gold going over to that Ziggs. Or, I apologize, it actually went to Seraph there. Big Crystal Arrow lands onto Wafflers, forcing out that Milio ultimate to cleanse, and the two cleanses in the repertoire of the to be determined squad for Wafflers, the cleanse and the ultimate from Milio, you're not really looking to utilize all of those at one time. You don't want to have to use it to prevent somebody on your team from just being zoned off or picked off early on. That crystallized ash arrow is not what you want to utilize it on. There just isn't enough value. Champions here on this to be determined squad looking for range potential, looking for the poke to be able to get people low enough to go in on, to be able to engage, to be able to get the value that they need, the pick potential that they want, before Syndra gets those 120 stacks, gets fully up there, and is able to wreak havoc on this entire lobby. But there's not any openings. Pushing forward, looking, anything. Syndra, maybe Gnar, not going to be able to be picked off here, as the stun does not be able to be acted on. Mega Bomb used just to clear wave here, as we see and we watch in horror as To Be Determined is sieged over and over, 11k gold down against this Koi Abyss squad. And it's not just on one person. This gold is spread out evenly throughout the entirety of that team, preventing anybody from actually being able to put up a fight. You can't just focus one person out. You have to focus everyone, and there just is nothing that they can do. There isn't enough. Xayah is not far enough ahead, and the only engage that they have just got picked off by another big hook from this Himli Blitzcrank. Awesome ultimate coming through to be able to prevent just the smallest bit of threat that could be caused by this to be determined squad. Coming in, inhibitors falling, turrets falling, time and time, over and over again, watching this squad fall yet one more time as we watch the Baron dwindle out, and might just provide a little bit of solace for this to be determined squad, who is now 12k gold down. Looking for just the smallest opportunity, we do see that Blitzcrank ends up TPing through with Unsealed Spellbook, looking for something to prevent. And oh, you just see the stuns coming through from Syndra and Blitzcrank over and over again. Oh, Syndra all comes through, executing J4. As we watch yet again this Blitzcrank combo showing up time and time. This entire match, Himli has been on fire, cranking out each CC ability over and over again, consistently, as we have watched this entire map. The entire series has been dominated by this bot lane duo of Anasui and Himli. Even now, they aren't even able to put up any kind of fight against this Koi Abyss squad, who has only died 4 times total in this second game. What a heavily favored matchup for this Koi Abyss squad, coming out and countering every single one of the attempted plays that To Be Determined has looked for over and over again in this entire league. To Be Determined is a team that has shown up time and time again for their ability to turn fights around, to turn entire games and series around at a moment's notice, being held back by the removal of one of their players, just not able to make it, unfortunately. JP the Boss not being there for this team has prevented a lot of their team coordination that they typically have from that strong tank engage. As we saw that Seraph trying to engage over and over again, but to no avail. Orion trying to make some kind of opportunity is caught out by an Anivia wall, by a Blitzcrank hook, by some kind of CC, whether it's Maokai Ultimate or Ash Arrow or Syndra stun. There's just too much to punish people for going too far forward. And unfortunately, that is just exactly what they did. As you watch two very heavily Koi Abyss favored games go very clearly to our 4th place leaderboard slot for the Ember Scorch League. Now, I am currently checking in onto the outcome of our previous game for the Haze and the Ember Haze and the Conduit Co. game, but I do not see anything as of yet on that game. Does look like it might have been. I apologize. Ember Haze has won. They won 2-0 against Conduit, which will unfortunately mean the end of the road for Conduit, if I recall correctly. I apologize, not the end of the road, but the 7th slot for that playoff run. Before I was told that it was going to be a total of 6 teams in this playoff bracket, but that was originally the case for the rules, but there was some miscommunication on the rules and the understanding, so it is actually a larger bit of a squad, of a grouping for that playoff matchup. We will see all top 8 teams following through here, but the as for the layout of who is in this for the for just what the ranking is for this leaderboard, we will see Conduit Co. being at the bottom of that list, just above the I think it's the Destiny or Digi-Destined team that is just barely above it, above that threshold. So next week we will be coming through with a very strong playoff match that has not been decided yet. However, with the addition of the games that just were undergone, it is most likely that we will see these 2 teams duking it out in the future as very strong competitors. And maybe we might be able to see Team To Be Determined demonstrating their ability to go forward and beat strong teams time again, just like they did with Conduit Demon Time beforehand. Will they be able to beat them potentially again as they face off one more time with their full roster? Who knows? But only time will tell. As we move forward from today, after a very conclusive 2-game series, as Koi Abyss is able to take out To Be Determined from their joy and their dream of getting that 4th place slot. Thank you everybody for joining. A quick reminder that there is a role. I don't remember the exact name that they called it. It is the role rivals coming up here in just a few days, and I would recommend everyone who is eligible and has not already signed up to please sign up for that, as more players are needed to be able to participate especially those who are playing as support. I believe the league for that is there's a Cinder League one, and there's also uh, a Scorch one that is coming out, and Scorch is missing those support players. So please, if you are a part of that squad, if you are a part of that league, please do sign